We are a proud B Corporation, which means we have an external accreditation for corporate social responsibility, and that really informs everything that we do. We're a staff of 10, and by and large, we do lots of things like strategic planning and communications planning, operational reviews, branding, that kind of thing. And we also have a really strong training, and that really helps us round out and serve nonprofits and charities and associations in lots of different ways. So that's a bit about us. Lots of pictures there. The photograph in the middle of my kind of bald head is me up in Moosonee. I did some work with an organization up there and got right up and down the James Bay and Hudson Bay coast to the small flying communities there. So we really do get around. So let's jump right in. You know, when it comes to partnering, I hear a lot of different things, and here's some kind of like fragments of things that I hear pretty often. You know, from founders, I hear, you know, I found and built this organization from scratch, and, you know, I've battled to ensure our autonomy, and I'm really going to defend what I've built. And others would say things like, you know, we serve really unique local needs, and, you know, there's not organizations from elsewhere that are going to care about our people and our community and our stakeholders the way we do. And partnering might mean that we get kind of eaten by some bigger organization. And if we start to partner, maybe it'll be like a slippery slope towards us being sort of consumed by some larger entity from somewhere else. And staying accountable to this community is really at the heart of why we exist. And so if there was to be like less local oversight or governance, maybe our resources would go elsewhere. And come on, Jonathan, you know, big is not always better. We are really scrappy and we're creative and plucky, you know, and our identity will be eroded if we don't call all of the shots. Maybe some of those thoughts have come around your board tables and your management teams. Maybe you've heard yourself say parts or some of them, and I'd say they're pretty normal. They're pretty normal. There's a lot of truth to these, because organizations have been built from the ground up, and there is a lot invested. A lot of personal care has been invested in the development of local nonprofit organizations, and partnering can feel like a worrying, but I also hear that, you know, money is always tight, and maybe we haven't had an increase to our budget in a long time. What new things can we try? And smaller nonprofits especially find, you know, the kind of skilled staff they need hard to come by. Maybe they can't compete financially. And EDs, of course, are doing all the HR work off the side of their desk. So, you know, how can I make recruiting and retaining staff maybe easier? And, you know, funder reporting, especially if you've got municipal or provincial or federal funding, you know, it's really time consuming to report up. And maybe, you know, we don't always have the analytical skills to interpret the data for ourselves. And even just purchasing IT systems, whether it's software or hardware, are really expensive. We don't always have the procurement expertise that we need to make bigger purchases. You know, are there other ways that we could be doing this? Are there other solutions out there? And of course, you know, core to this conference, the fundraising environment is asking nonprofits to do ever more with less. And do we really have to compare work that we should be looking at this through some sort of zero-sum game lens? Now, adding on to all of this, of course, is the pandemic, and this provides both puts and takes in terms of opportunities and risks for organizations to be thinking about new partnerships. there's pressures, right? Nationally, fundraising's down for many nonprofits. I know it's mixed, and there are some that have in fact seen actually increases in donations and support because of the pandemic. But for many nonprofits, especially those that have event planning and social gatherings as a kind of core component to their fundraising endeavors, they've certainly felt the pressure and have seen a drop off. You know, probably goes without saying that volunteering is down. There was, I think it was earlier this week from Imagine Canada maybe, or Volunteers Canada, just around the number the folks that we serve in whatever way we do might be growing. They're certainly changing. But this has also forced us to do lots of things differently. And you've probably heard from others already at the conference here that, you know, innovation is happening and remote work is happening, and we're starting to think and be forced to think of new ways of delivering services or meeting the needs of our stakeholders and communities. And so we end up asking ourselves, what must we change? What should we change? What will stay the same down the road? And all of these connect into the way we think about ourselves in relationship to our partners and potential partners. And so there's lots of risks, and there's lots of opportunities. And what I'm hoping to do together today is unpack a framework for thinking about your approach to partnerships and give you a sense of what the range of those possibilities might be able to be. So I'll just pause in here for a second before I jump in the agenda, and I'm just going to look at the chat to make sure I'm looking okay. That's great. I'm just going to scroll and have a little look at folks too, if I can. So here's the agenda. You know, why collaborate or partner in the first place? What's it really all about anyway? And how do we assess where we're at now? And how do we be honest about that? What's the range of collaborative options that are available to me and to our organization? At the end of the day, we're going to be forced to ask ourselves, what problem are we trying to solve via a partnership strategy, via an intentional partnership strategy? And if we choose to deploy one and to move towards creating new and different partnerships, how do we get started? What's the right first steps? So at the end, I'll obviously take questions, and hopefully you'll have them along the way here. And please know I'm providing a worksheet tool for you to use. So you can start to take what we're going to review here together, and you can take it back to your team, and you can work through the tool. And from that, it's basically an audit tool. It'll help you to think deeply about the partners that you currently have and where your gaps and opportunities. Sound good? So a couple of caveats, super quick. This presentation is for general information and about collaborating in the nonprofit sector. It's not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm definitely not using strict legal definitions or citing the law because we're management consultants. If your organization is thinking really seriously about some work time advising nonprofit organizations to choose lawyers that have expertise and experience in our sector, because just your brother's friend that's a lawyer may not do this kind of and may not really have any depth of. We'll discuss is super high level and citations before somebody asks. I will be sharing this slide deck, so I'll send that along through the Durham Community Foundation. I'll email it out, I guess, after the after the session, along with the worksheet. So why collaborate and why partner? Well, bunch of different reasons, right? The first, for efficiency. You probably want to get more done. You probably want to be able to serve more people or make a bigger, impact on your communities. For effectiveness, right? You want to improve the outcomes. You want to improve the quality of your programs and services, or whatever it is that you offer. You want to get better at it. For sustainability, most nonprofits are looking to some degree to figure out ways to diversify their revenue stream. Organizations that are more sustainable typically, not always, but typically have diverse revenue streams. So, it's not all the eggs in one basket, right? And also sustainability can mean that you can generate scale. So the things that you deliver or offer in service of whatever your mission is, you of that not increase the cost, which is sort of the underlying point to scale. The next is leverage. It's kind of some business terms here, but improving margins. So in other words, taking in more money and not spending more to take that in. Maybe you want to also access your skills, people that have skills that are otherwise unattainable to you within your own budgets. And maybe other organizations or nonprofits have them, but maybe you have things that they want. And we'll talk about that. And sometimes organizations are simply just trying to grow. And the reason why they want to partner and why they want to integrate with other organizations is because they don't feel like they're the right size to meet the scope of the problem. And so to get bigger means maybe things like mergers, and that can be important because to take a realistic go at meeting the needs of the community, they need to be quite a bit bigger. And so they want to expand their reach, or maybe they want to increase their service volumes, or they want to add programs or services. Maybe they want to serve new and different catchment areas. And I wonder if you can think of other reasons why you might like to partner. Throw that in the chat and let me know if you can think of reasons why in the past you've wanted to partner, or reasons why you're thinking about partnering now. And we'll just see if anybody drops anything in the chat. We'll have a look. I'm writing something here. There I am. So hopefully that's going to prompt you a little bit. Right, Deborah's saying funding, often partnering on grant applications to receive funding. Great point, Deborah. And absolutely true. Increasingly funding organizations, whether it's foundations or government, they really like to see joint applications, right? That's starting to kind of get to that leverage and that scale. Many people working together for a common goal, says Angie. Completely agree, Angie. There's nothing like coming together and breaking down silos and realizing that we can be a lot stronger together as organizations. Thanks for that, both. I appreciate you both jumping in there. So who is this really all about anyway? And this photograph here is of maybe a senior, and it is ultimately, in most of our minds, about our mission, right? About the mission of the organization that we run, and that is so important to why we exist and why we do what we do. At the end of the day, though, as you start to unpack opportunities and risks around partnerships and how to build better partnerships and how to get stronger at being a partner, you're asking yourself a kind of core, what I would describe as governance question, which is what's really in the best interests of the organization. And to understand that, you're saying to yourself, what's in it for clients? What's in it for our staff and volunteers, for the board, for the community? A really strong and sound partnership approach takes into account everybody that cares about the future success of your organization. And some engagement with your stakeholders and with your partners especially can really help to shape and inspire your work when it comes to doing partnership, striking new partnerships and building strong partnerships. So sort of the next stop along the journey is asking some hard questions, and hopefully giving some honest answers as well. It's hard to deliver on a big partnership strategy and put the necessary effort and energy behind it if it's not helping to drive some component of your own strategic plan. So the first sort of stop here on this let's ask the hard questions journey is, do we have a current and relevant strategy? Do we have a strategic plan? Have we got some operational plans? Are our mission, vision, and value statements still working for us? Are they still true? Do they still resonate with the folks that care most about us? So, do we have a relevant strategy that being a better and stronger partner is going to help to drive? Then a good hard look at how we're performing. And I'll say a bit more in a minute here about why this is important, but how are our finances? Are we flush with cash? Are we struggling at various times in the year with our cash management? Are we facing a long but worrying decline over time? How are our systems, our business systems, our operation systems? How do we run the office? Are we feeling strong and healthy? Are things where they are? Do we have policies to support what we do? To think about our programs and where we're at with them. How's the quality of what we deliver in terms of services and programs? Let's think about our leadership and our government. Well, we can think about that for sure, but our governance. And do we have the right people around the table? Do we have the right leaders in place? And finally, human resources, our staffing, and what do our staff need, and also volunteers in order to be successful. These are all essential things to just give some consideration to, because building a partnership, an intentional partnership approach might, as you're going to see, help to bolster or fill in or support or augment things that you've got in place. And so where you're strong, what you'll find out is that it's another way to say, we have this to offer, this strength to offer somebody else. But where you're weak, then you have a need that somebody else might be able to fill in your gap. And so being able to ask yourself, what do you have to offer and what do you need, is an important framework for moving into partnerships, because it helps you to be strategic and really intentional about spending time and developing relationships with other organizations, because they're going to bring things to you that you don't have, and you're going to bring things to them. You know, I suppose it's the classic kind of win-win type thing, but I think it's more of a puzzle piece kind of fitting together is maybe a better metaphor. How does what is happening around us impact us? Right? There's policy and funding changes, there's sector and systemic issues, there's emerging best practices and changing best practices, of course, technology, and there's certainly really, really local issues as you move across this huge province of ours, and shifts in demographics. I'm working with an organization now that's a small, kind of a farming community, and it's seen a huge influx of folks leaving the GTA, and it's completely changing their organization and the community that they serve. And what's the state of our current collaborations? So if you were to kind of audit the organizations that you most commonly partner with, how would you assess each of those organizations, and more importantly, the relationship, the quality of the relationship that you have with them? Is it informal or is it formal? Like, do you have a memorandum of understanding between the two of your organizations? Or is it just kind of like you go out for coffee with the other ED, once every 6 months? Is it robust or is it weak? Is it trusting or is it kind of, begrudging? Are these relationships things that you're more or less obliged to sit at the community round table that spins its wheels and doesn't really deliver any meaningful results, but you kind of got to be seen to be there. You know, are the relationships as they exist now evaluated, or are they kind of nebulous in terms of whether they're working? And is there a kind of joint accountability, or are the results pretty much siloed into each of the organizations that are in the partnership? So these hard questions and the honest answers that you want to give to them help to kind of assess your current state. Both how are you showing up to being a partner, and what do you have to offer other organizations? What do you need? What are they offering you? And how successful and impactful are these relationships as they currently stand? So ultimately, you want to say, is the sum greater than the parts? Back to the list of worries that folks had at the outset that I was kind of going through. And really, you know, the answer should be yes. And the answer should be, if we strike really thoughtful, meaningful partnerships, then the sum ought to be greater than the parts. So let's spend a little bit of time investigating what some of the options are in front of us around collaborations. So there's different options available if you're interested in cooperating or coordinating or collaborating with other nonprofit organizations. Some of the options give you greater autonomy, while others are going to lead to a deeper integration. And you know, I should say on that second point, they're both neutral. Like, autonomy might be a great thing, or it might be a bad thing. And greater integration might be a great thing, or it might be a bad thing, and anywhere in between. So they're sort of, you know, value neutral. But it's true that autonomy versus integration is definitely a scale that is something that you should think about. And so we're going to unpack this here in a second, but collaborations can include, you know, anything from super informal networking. Maybe you're participating in membership organizations. Maybe you're working with others to create a kind of umbrella group or some coalitions. Maybe you're sharing premises or facilities, or you're sharing staff or parts of, you know, staff. Maybe you're group purchasing, you're doing back office integration. And you're saving money because you're group purchasing and you're getting volume discounts. Maybe with another organization in another part of the province, you're doing a joint venture. You're co-serving you know, really disparate groups of people in different areas, but you're blending your resources in order to be able to do that. Maybe you're doing research together. Maybe you're joint training together. Maybe maybe you're doing programming, or maybe you're even fundraising together. So there's a lot, and this is just a limited list. There's lots and lots of ways that organizations can come together and do work and contribute to one another's successes. So let's for a minute understand the range of options, because I think in the back of nonprofits' minds, especially after, you know, many years of austerity when it comes to government funding, there can be a push from government when things get tight to just simply want to fund fewer organizations, right? So they basically come along and say, you 12 organizations, lock yourselves in this room for the next 6 months, have a series of meetings, and come out with fewer entities. Now, I'm being kind of, you know, simplistic and harsh at the same time, but those sorts of things happen from time to time, and that can be a really difficult way for organizations to find themselves in some sort of partnership. But that said, you know, I've seen those forced integration exercises actually develop strong relationships that maybe don't result in anything in that particular time, but folks actually do get to know each other through those processes, and actually do end up working much more closely together. So at one end, you've got things like collaborations, and they're kind of, you know, less complex. There's lots of opportunities for quick wins, and they're usually less formal. Through partnerships and integrations, all the way up to things like amalgamations and mergers, right? Which are, you know, more complex. They certainly are typically transformational for organizations, and they tend to be more formal in nature. So let's just talk for a minute about each of these four. So collaborations, I always find a definition sort of useful. It's a kind of purposeful relationship in which two or more organizations strategically choose to cooperate in order to accomplish a shared outcome. And the benefits for collaboration may bring together organizations to share resources. Maybe they want to align mutual goals. Maybe they just want to share information. So an example might be, you know, a community collaboration project or the development of a, quote, you know, no wrong door kind of regional policy where organizations that serve similar clients have a standardized intake, for example. The risks to it is that they're informal. Things can kind of, you know, break apart if the one or two of the key folks that are the big personalities in the collaboration leave. They can sometimes take the energy with them. They certainly require good faith and lots of sort of self-generated follow through. So moving along the chevrons here is the partnerships. And so a definition is two or more organizations coming together, whether informally or more formally, like a joint venture, to work in a defined way for mutual benefit. So they're, you know, working on a project or a program together. Lots of benefits, right? They can pursue opportunities together. They can pool resources. They can apply for joint funding, just like somebody said there in the chat a few minutes ago. They can share the rewards, but also share the responsibilities. The benefit is also that you maintain autonomy, and it offers the ability to kind of co-create goals with your partners. And examples might include cost sharing of positions or the joint delivery of a program, you know, to kind of help you understand cost sharing of a position. Maybe you could only afford a part-time human resources coordinator, and you have felt that position difficult to keep filled over time because finding good HR people can be tough. Well, there's another organization down the way that is in a similar predicament. And so maybe together you pool your money and you, instead of get a coordinator, you get a director level position who has a deeper level of expertise, and you just get them half time. But that's ultimately kind of what you need. And so there's solutions that that you can, you know, just simply afford more together. And risks, right? They can be longer term, they are longer term, and that can mean more bumps in the road. They certainly usually have associated administrative costs, at the very least a time cost. One party may be left shouldering more of the work or the outcomes, and they may, the partnership may benefit one more so than the other, right? There could be financial or legal or contractual obligations, and potentially could carry risks to your brand or your reputation. So lots of pros and cons there on the partnerships. Let's look at integrations. Just gonna have a drink. So the definition of integrations are, okay, again, they're more formal. They're legal arrangements where aspects of two or more organizations, programming or services or operations or back office. By back office, I mean, you know, IT, HR, purchasing, finance, those kinds of things. You might be sitting in the audience right now saying, yep, I'm all those things, just me. And they can be combined for mutual benefit, right? The benefits are reducing costs potentially. Maybe there's operational efficiency gains. You can capture synergies of different organizations, and it might allow you to really focus on your core business. If you're not busy worrying about running payroll or doing procurement, you've got more time to do what you do best and why you exist after all. And it allows you to leverage access at additional you know, organizations that are external to you and their expertise. Examples would be back of house integration. So again, that's sort of integrations around IT, HR, purchasing, finance, that kind of thing. Oh, and there's the example of a shared HR director. So this would be, instead of just sort of cost sharing a position, this would maybe be more formal than that. And they would like literally work for both organizations jointly, as opposed to maybe one that gets outsourced to the other in the earlier example. And maybe you could do joint fundraising. There are some risks though, right? As you get more serious here along the way, you can lose autonomy, and that can be important for some organizations, and it might advance the case for amalgamation. It certainly binds organizations together, and it exposes partners to one another's risks. So it's almost like the mirror side of all the benefits are, of course, the risks. And finally, amalgamations and mergers. It's an integrated restructuring in which two or more organizations combine their operations into a single entity. So a merger can be done in different ways, but ultimately it's the most complete form of cooperation between organizations because you become one. The benefits are, there's maybe efficiencies, there's a reduction in duplication, maybe you get scale, growth, there might be competitive advantages. And there's just a whole bunch of ways. You could have a whole presentation just on mergers, but there's a whole bunch of ways that they can happen. And just a quick example is, like organization and the merge to create a brand new organization, which is C. Maybe organization A is just not doing well, and they wind up, and their assets, what's kind of left over, is taken over by organization B. And, there's lots of risks there around loss of autonomy or history or organizational culture. Maybe there'd be a disruption or loss of service to some of the folks that you serve. There could be financial or legal implications. And sometimes funders direct, and this is just a kind of note here at the bottom, direct organizations to pursue these options, like any of these options, but other times they're kind of voluntarily pursued. And, I'm definitely of the opinion that anytime that you're actively thinking about strengthening partnerships and building in, integration work into what you do is to your advantage. Because if your funder happens to be a government entity, and if they decide they want to do forced integrations or forced mergers, if you're already very entwined with many organizations, you have a strong argument to make. We're already doing lots of things, and we did it on our own terms in our own way. So just checking the time here, just got a couple of minutes here to blow through the last slide or two. What problem are we trying to solve? Right, there's some external drivers that really you need to keep in mind as you're thinking about partnerships and being a better partner and looking for the right kinds of partners. And the external drivers might be financial. So you might be under some funding pressure or financial pressure. There could be shifting community and client needs, right? There could be changes in the external environment. I don't mean sort of environmental like climate change. I mean environmental like, other organizations doing new and different things around you. And so these things impact in a big way why organizations think deeply about partnering. And, if you're thinking about partnering for the first time because you're really struggling financially, it's not too late, but it can be a bit unfortunate because when you're doing okay is a great time to be thinking about getting stronger and doing even more, even better. And there's also internal drivers, right, which are often rooted in an organization's desire to have, more sustainability. Just about all nonprofits have capacity issues, right? Everybody wants us to be all things to all people, and we're all really stretched too thin. So sustainability is one of the biggest concerns in our sector. And, many government funders are moving away from traditional core funding in favor of maybe project funding or even a purchase of service agreement. So, there's also competition for those of you that rely solely on fundraising and philanthropy. There's an increasing competition for donors. So for all these reasons, organizations think lots about partnering, and it's important to really kind of hone in and sharpen what problem is your organization trying to solve through its partnership strategy, because that's going to really help you ascertain what you need in a partner and how you, what you might want to present to a new partner in terms of what their needs might be, and how you would evaluate ultimately the success of that partnership. So I'm going to share this deck, as I said. Here's a checklist for getting started. You know, please do strategic planning. Engage your partners as a component of your strategic planning, and identify if creating a partnership strategy is a strategic priority for you, and get it in your plan. So don't just do it off the side of your desk. Make it a really intentional act. Audit your existing partnerships. What do I mean by that? I mean, map the effort involved in keeping those partnerships whole versus the value or impact that you get from them. So let me just do a little diagram here of what that could look like. I didn't just do that like off the top. I did that in advance, just if you're wondering how fancy I am. Not that fancy. So for example, here is, you know, on the vertical axis, here's the effort, and here's the value and impact on the bottom. So organization D, your partnership with organization D here on the, you know, kind of bottom right, has low effort, but really high value and impact. So, you know, is that an organization that you're doing everything you can right now to increase and improve that partnership? If so, great. You know, organization F has kind of got a mid-level of effort, but there's still, you know, high value and a high impact coming. And, you know, organization E is great. I mean, wow, you get a lot of value and a lot of impact, but boy, it's a lot of work, right? So really thinking about how you would kind of rank and sort the partnerships that you have right now, and the ones that maybe you would like to cultivate, and where would you plot them on that axis. You know, for sure, conduct an organization-wide risk assessment, because where you have the biggest risks in your organization, that's where partnerships may be able to fill a gap. Do a self-assessment, right? What can you offer to others? What do you need? And you should assess your potential partners. Where are their natural and complementary alignments to yours? And start the conversation small and start it close to home. Build on your existing relationships and expand your network, and talk strengths. Come from a strengths-based approach and talk what your needs are that others might have for you. And if you're struggling to wonder where some folks might be that you could expand your partnerships, talk to funders, talk to other third parties about these options, maybe associations, maybe consultants in and around your space, because they might know where new opportunities might be found for you. So let me pause there and ask, what questions do you have for me? I'm going to look here at some of the things here. I'm seeing Audrey. I'm just going back a little bit. At CJA Durham, we're partnering with Nourish and Develop Foundation in Brock Township in order to expand our free community meditation program to reach the North Durham residents. That's fantastic. Great, great to hear from Audrey there. We work with Brock CHC from time to time, so I know that community really pretty well. And there's some requests to run the poll again. We're going to try to run the poll at the end of the presentation, everybody. Audrey's liking the audit idea, and you'll be doing it formally. That's great. The tool I'm going to hand you, Audrey, is actually going to help you in that a lot. It asks a lot of these questions that you've got, and you can kind of fill it in with your team. So that's great. What other questions have you got about partnerships? Maybe you've got some worries about partnerships, or maybe you're just wondering, you know, how do I get better at this? How do I get going? Any thoughts or questions around that? Let me also go to the moderator and make sure none are coming in another way that I don't understand how the technology works, like through the Q&A.
No, it's just the chat. There's nothing in the Q&A.
Okay. Let me just see here. So, so that's great. If anybody has any more questions that you're thinking about as you think about your partnership strategy, if they come to you after the presentation, feel free to shoot me a note. I'll drop my information in the chat in just a minute. My question for you is, and maybe you could put your answer in the chat, what was most useful for you here as we kind of unpacked partnerships and how to think about them in a more sort of strategic way? What one thing might jump out at you as something that's kind of interesting or important? See if we can get anything going in the chat. Help me out, folks. Don't leave me hanging. I'm being left hanging.
Jonathan, I'll help you out. So I think,
all right, great.
What I personally found most helpful was when I think of collaborations, my thoughts were rather limited in terms of what that meant. So you've provided an awful lot of examples of from what a collaboration can look like, from joint efforts to mergers to just partnerships. So I've really appreciated expanding the breadth of my understanding of what a collaboration might be, and it's given me a few ideas.
Nice. Oh, that's great. I appreciate that a lot. That's great. So let me just see here. If there's nothing more, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop my info in there if that works. Let's just have a look. Okay, just in the chat for later, if you want to email me, there's my email there. We have a new webinar that we're just launching right now. So if you're interested in some more around how to learn more about having a possibility mindset and leading with a possibility mindset, there's a link to a webinar that we're running, which is free. And just also a link to our website. If you want to stay in touch with us, we'd love to stay in touch with you. Your next steps to hopefully encourage your board and your management team to discuss collaborations at a future board meeting or a future management meeting and incorporate some of the getting started steps into your work plans for your board and your management over the next year. And I will send along a copy of this deck and also a copy of the work tool over to the Durham Community Foundation, and I'm sure they'll be emailing out stuff or posting stuff somewhere for you to download it, whatever the case may be, and so you can make sure that you get a copy of everything that we've done here. And again, if you want to stay in touch, my email is there. There's further reading lists here of where I got some of this stuff from. If you want to kind of dive in a little deeper and get to some of the underpinning stuff, it's all here listed. So you'll get that in your deck. And that, I think, is it from me. So maybe I'll just go back to the moderator and check in here.